Over the past couple of weeks, I've been doing what I call my seasonal SEO retreat. It's simply taking time to pause and think things through before a new season starts. I did this before school ended for summertime, and now I'm doing it again before school starts. If your life follows the school calendar in any way, whether you're a parent, a teacher, or connected to education, you know that there are natural transition points when life changes, and nothing like the school transition is a good kick in the pants. And if this doesn't apply to you, I still hope this discussion would be encouraging for you because we all have seasons, life changes. So we're going to explore that. And something that I've learned about myself is that I tend to do so much better in those transitional times when I start paying attention to what might be ahead before I'm right in the middle of the transition, where those bumpy bits happen. Hey, beloved, and welcome back to the podcast. If you're listening on the podcast or watching over on YouTube, I am so glad you're here. Today's episode is a little bit different because it's one of my connection call episodes. My hope is with these is to kind of pull back the curtain a bit and invite you into conversations and practices that are actively shaping my own life. Inspiration, not obligation. I'm keeping these intentionally simple. I am pressing record. We're having a conversation. And then I'm sharing it with you just as it is. Not because it's perfect, but because I think sometimes we need a little more real life and a little less polish. And as a recovering perfectionist, it's helpful to simplify it. Future times, I'm hoping to have this back and forth with fellow beloveds face to face. But right now, I'm experimenting. We're all about experimentation. So today, I want to invite you into something that I've been doing over the past few weeks as I prepare for a new season, my seasonal SEO retreat. And whether or not you're on a business or not, I still find it's been a good mind flip to think about I'm the CEO of my life. Am I acting like it? Obviously, God is the be all end all. I'm not negating that, but acting like someone who, is responsible for the life I'm leading. And a big reason that I love doing this is Ecclesiastes. I don't know where you might fall on the spectrum about Ecclesiastes. It seems like so many of us either we hate it because we're like, it's so depressing, or we absolutely love it. We're like, it's so amazing. I am strongly in the amazing camp. So there you go, for better or for worse. And one of the things I really appreciate is Ecclesiastes 11, where the writer talks about how there's a season for everything. There's a season to tear, to mend, to tear down, to restore. There's so many different things we can go down that path. But a big thing that comes up from that is there's a season for everything and things are going to change. That's part of design. And it's something that I find really refreshing and encouraging to lean into when seasons are bumpy. This will change. And when seasons are really good, this may change. So enjoy the season I'm in. So that's another reason that idea, the seasonal retreat is very invigorating. Instead of pretending that the next season will somehow look exactly like the last one, I've started asking, how do I want to enter this next season? With the expectation, not everything's going to be figured out. I'm going to do this imperfectly. We live in a broken world. So that's our reality. Now, I want to be absolutely clear. This is not me disappearing for a day with a journal and a cup of tea, though I really like having the tea. And that's not my reality. Having extended long retreats is not realistic. My own retreat has happened during nap times, while my boys are taking baths, during babysitting windows, while I'm driving somewhere and I'm voice memoing thoughts, while I'm talking things through with my husband, and honestly, a whole lot of brainstorming with AI to help me organize my brain. I've noticed that sometimes my brain needs permission to start thinking about something and to percolate on it in the background while I'm doing other things, like laundry, like sending emails, like playing at the playground with my children. It gives the space to initiate it. And what's been really liberating, again, recovering perfectionist here, is learning to not expect myself to figure it all out in one setting, and that I may never figure it all out, and that's okay. But this begins the conversation with myself, with others, and so forth. The goal isn't to create the perfect plan. The goal is to notice what needs my attention before life gets busy. So I'm going to share a few different questions that I like to explore. For me, it's really helpful to look ahead before I look back. Future-minded, There you go. You can always flip-flop whichever works well for you. But consider just asking what's actually happening this season. Since for the seasonal retreat, I was looking over August, September, and October just as a chunk of time. School starting. We've got family birthdays coming up, my own birthday. We're getting back into connect group flow for the ones that my husband and I lead, ones I lead, part of, all those different kinds of things. I'm planning on offering a God-given gifts chat circle in September. That's a factor. Wedding anniversary. We're going to have earlier mornings because the school rhythm's shifting, more structure. The list goes on. And this isn't to turn into a laundry list, just naming what's actually real, what's going on. And that can be really helpful. Just naming, oh, this is coming up. I might want to consider, where do I need buffer room? Where do we need a bit more breathing space? Where there might be some opportunities to start experimenting earlier on with those transition windows. And that's actually something that was helpful, was per the usual, starting the school morning routine, not full shebang from top to bottom, but getting into the practice of seeing, does this work? And where do we might maybe need to bring in more buffer room? Okay, I'm going to stop there and then we'll move to the next one. The other thing that I've really liked exploring is where might I need support? And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean support from other people all the time. Maybe it means buffers, like I just talked about. Um, it's a few different things that come to mind are like exercise. I will put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. Having rhythm space. Now I'm getting a little meandering. Okay. So exercise, we'll focus on that. So one of the things that I've noticed is I really enjoy a morning workout and cramming it all in before, we need to be out the door, let's say 7:15 every morning, not realistic. So it gave me a space to think about. So what could that look like during this season for a time? It may change again when the weather cools. So we're going to experiment with having like a 5 to 10 minute exercise in the morning before we get out the door. That's the baseline because I like to do it with my children. It works for me. And then at the end of the day, we'll plan on a backup home where I can do another burst because the idea of doing 30 minutes is not realistic. So a backup home I'm experimenting with is doing it in the bathroom while my children are playing in the tub or after supper. Again, just experimenting. And we'll come back to the idea of backup home more. Another thing that I know is a touchstone that was really helpful is thinking about what tends to be stressful in those. We'll focus on the morning for right now. Those morning transitions of what have been recurring pain points and how can I be more supportive of that? And sometimes it's super duper simple. Like I know this past season, we realized that we were losing my son's glasses every morning. And this went on for like 2 months. It was ridiculous. We spent like 15 minutes, trying to find these glasses when we realized we just need to literally give it home. So I tried different tactics, but ultimately the one that seemed to be most helpful for us is just put your glasses on your nightstand by bedtime. That's the baseline. We may end up doing some searching in the evening, but for us, that's not as stressful as doing it in the morning. Really, much of it I've realized with where does it need support, sometimes it means in my own rhythm, is simply giving a home for something. Because if it matters to me, it weighs on me. And it doesn't weigh as much if it has homes, literally, physically, or mentally, or schedulally, or all the above. Schedulally, new word. Congratulations. Just realized that. And what's also been really helpful is have a backup home. What's an alternative option that, okay, so the day went differently than I expected. How could this be supportive? It doesn't mean you're a failure. It just gives the breathing room. And a thing that, like I was sharing about the exercises, I'd realized it'd been so stressful was because they became homeless. They didn't have anywhere to live. And I also need to revisit my definition of success. And for me, I decided we'll just say press play. We do 5 minutes, that's a minimum. 10, that would be amazing. And if we're not able to achieve that, that's the end. That's okay for that day. We can always begin again and reassess. Because often the problem isn't motivation. Sometimes it's capacity, and maybe what you want to do just needs a home. So another section that I've really enjoyed leaning into is what went well during the past season, whatever you want to define that is. I'm not very specific about that, but what are some of those moments of wonder, the meaningful moments you've had, the wins, the accomplishments? It's so easy to get caught up in the doing and tending and just looking ahead that we can forget to celebrate. Wow, I grew a lot there. I was more patient. I was less irritable, or I accomplished quite a few gnarly things I didn't think I would be able to do. I made progress, whatever it is, just taking a moment and celebrating it. I know this was again an enlightening one that, wow, I really did leaned in hard to a few key projects that I had built in time for. I had been intentional about it, but there's something about sometimes after the accomplishing, you forget about what a big deal it was. And I've noticed that that's also just helped me carry into the next season. Oh yeah, who knows what this next season will bring of the possibilities. So another question I like to ask is, what questions do I have? And that for me has been one of the most helpful things. When I'm feeling overwhelmed about what's going on, what's ahead. Sometimes it's been so helpful to just think, well, what are the questions I have? Some of them are Googleable. Some of them need time to percolate, and some of them just need naming. I know it's not uncommon that often we do like reviews and seasonal resets, whatnot. We set our goals, and that is absolutely important. That's part of it. But identifying what are the questions you have about that can be helpful. So, for instance, a few of them I had in mind were I know during the spring semester, we were really struggling to find a predictable home for doing homework for my eldest when he came home from school. I've been wanting to give him time to decompress from school, to like switch the flip. And I also know that school can be intense. He likes school. And I've also wondered, just as a kid with special needs, how much it can be more like, oh, a bit of a sucking up. That's not quite right. We'll stick with it. But that was something I explored. Like, what are some possibilities for homework rhythms? Well, we won't get it perfectly. And then where's a backup home? And so we decided, well, how about we experiment with like after the afternoon bath time? Whenever he gets home, he hops in the bath. It's just like a reset of your home. And I think the sensory component's pretty cool. So woo woo. Is we just plan on, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes of homework. We do, or what I call a learning pocket, since his toddler brother likes to do learning as well. And we just begin. That's it. And then that's it. And then if we need to, we can come back after supper before we have our nightly sweet treat and do the next chunk for 5 to 10 minutes. And that's it. Now, granted, I hope second grade he doesn't have a crazy amount of homework, but I also want us to build that muscle of being prepared for it. This could be the reality. So, how do we want to lean into this where it has somewhere to live? Another thing that I had a question about was, oh, this keeps popping up. We have, as you can probably raise your hand, a pile up of miscellany paperwork that just keeps coming in. Oh my gosh, from school, from the mail, from just random places. And I don't like sorting it. I avoid it. I've experimented over the past few seasons about, well, I'll do it on these days at this time. And I've noticed I don't do it. I avoid it. And so what I was realizing is, well, okay, so first of all, I don't want to be so daunted by it because it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Not surprising. But maybe this is another back option, not to stack the bath time all the time, but maybe once a week during the boys' bath time, I bring my basket of papers in the bathroom and just do some sorting. That's it. Nothing too complicated, deciding what needs to take action, what needs to be filed, and dispose of the rest, whatever that may be. Super simple. We're experimenting because I don't want to make special time to do this. I don't like doing it. But if I can stack it with something else where I'm kind of held captive in a good way, it's worth a shot. Another rhythm that I know for us came to mind, and I just want to mention, I'm bringing these up just more so for prompts of what might come up for you, is my toddler's sleep has shifted dramatically for his naps. Usually he'd fall asleep earlier in the morning, and now he actually sleeps really well a couple hours later, which also just impacts a lot of things. It impacts how I structure our days, the timing of groups that I lead, like what needs to be shifted around, what are some tweaks that might impact our household. It doesn't mean that this is a bad thing. We just need to react to it accordingly and be aware of that. And it's been good to start thinking about it in advance without obsessing about it. That's a very different energy. What with all of this, I know I covered quite a few things. And there's probably even more we could dig into. Actually, I'll bounce it out there. Just what's something you want to give your attention to? during that time. You may have different facets. That's the way I kind of tend to look at it from like a parenting direction, perhaps marriage, from a leadership, business, faith walk, whatever those different angles are that helps you. There's probably something in common there, by the way. But what do you want to give attention to can also be a filter for what does not need your attention. What I've been realizing with all of this, because I could keep going and going, but I will try to stop, is I realize my goal isn't to try to solve everything before the season starts. It's to start noticing what's asking for my attention. I'd even argue sometimes noticing what needed attention the last time around we experience this season. Every season is different. It's going to have a different flavor. If you have kids, they keep growing. What is up with that? But that changes things. But sometimes part of the seasonal reflection time review is not about solving it all, figuring it all out. Sometimes the answer is making a plan or having a conversation or tweaking a rhythm. And sometimes it's simply letting all those different things become an experiment, knowing that you're a scientist. You're just figuring this out. You're experimenting, and that's okay. Experiments don't always go the way that you think you would. And another thing that may come up for you during your own reset is sometimes it's realizing something can wait until another time. You can intentionally kick that down the road. I know for me, that was something that kept coming up as I had different things in my beautiful backlog that I loosely have been like, oh, August, September. And I realized, no, we're not going to do that then. And that's okay. And I just bumped it down intentionally down the road. And that's very peace-giving than carrying like, oh, I got to do all these things. If you know a new season is coming, maybe don't try to solve it all at one time. Just give yourself a few minutes to begin noticing. And a little spoiler from my side, I totally didn't want to do this. I didn't feel like I was in the right headspace. And I noticed that I think I'm overthinking this. And I decided I'll just start and just start asking the questions and start brain dumping. And it's been such a gift. That may not be how your brain works, but just starting without the pressure to complete the whole conversation at one time can be very peace-giving. So back to you. I keep tangenting. Just give yourself 15 or 20 minutes or even five to begin noticing. You can start asking yourself, what's changing? What's ahead of the on the horizon? What's asking for my attention? Where might I need a little more margin? What questions do I want to think about? And what's something to celebrate from the past season? Because those matter. I would be absolutely delighted to hear from you. As you think about the season ahead, what's one thing you're noticing? Not something you solved or not. You don't have to do that. Just something you've noticed. Maybe it's a rhythm you want to experiment with. Maybe it's a question you keep coming back to. And maybe it's something you're super duper excited about. Feel free to send me a message, leave a comment on YouTube, or reply if you're reading this email. I genuinely love to hear what's on your mind. Beloveds are the best. And if you're realizing that you'd really like someone to think through your own season, that's exactly what I do a God-given gifts chat for. Sometimes it helps to have another person ask good questions and help you notice patterns that you might not see on your own. And it's always celebratory because you're loved. And we want to celebrate that. So, all that being said, I look forward to hearing from you. And I want to remind both you and me that you are loved.